This is Perspectivas Latinas, a community service of CAN TV. I'm your host, Juan Carlos Hernandez. The nonprofit organization Changing Worlds has been working to make art, oral history, and writing a meaningful part and integral part of the lives of children. Today, our guests Mark Rodriguez, Joanne Vena, and Francis Garcia are here to talk about their work. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Let's start off by talking about who you are and what you do with Changing Worlds, or how you became connected to that organization. Joanne?
Sure. I am the program director for Changing Worlds. Before that, I was always connected with arts education. I've been working in arts education for the last 25 years, and my connection's always been with bringing artists into Chicago public schools.
Great. Mark?
Great. So I'm the executive director of Changing Worlds. Been there for just over 10 years and really responsible for helping grow and support and ensure that the organization continues to work towards its mission.
Great. And
So I'm Francis Garcia, the proud principal of Calmeca Academy Fine Arts and Dual Language. And I've been a principal since 2003. And currently I have over 830 children.
830 children.
830 wonderful, outstanding, creative children in grades pre-kindergarten through 8th grade.
Wow. So I'm curious, how does, the first question will be for you, Francis. How did you make Changing Worlds part of the team that works with you at your school?
Well, Calmeca has always been a school with a focus in the arts. So our name, Fine Arts, says it all. It's one of our focus. And so we've always looked for opportunities to help support the work that we already started at the school. And so we came across Changing Worlds in 2007, and we got to know one another, and I asked for their support, and Mark was so wonderful enough to help us to bring in some artists to help with the program. So we started with Peri Pichotto and Pedro, who came as artists, and one of them helped with the folkloric dance, and the other one helped with the visual arts, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful partnership ever since.
Okay, it seems that that is one of your main purposes as an organization, is to work with Chicago public schools. How did Changing Worlds come to be, and why focus on the arts, Mark?
Sure. So Changing Worlds began in 1996 as an oral history project at a public school on Chicago's Northwest Side in Albany Park.
So it started with oral history.
Yeah, it was oral history and writing in the arts.
Okay.
Really, at that time, it was a project where we had historians interviewing families that came from all over the world and coexisted and lived together in Albany Park. And they created art, they did photographs of their families, and really shared their family stories to help bridge cultural divides and help promote cultural understanding. Today, our programs turn our young people into the historians and the artists. And they interview family members, community members, to help affirm their identity, learn about other cultures, and in our school programs, improve their arts and academic learning skills. And we partner with Calmeca among 40 plus other schools across the city and surrounding suburbs.
Well, and I'm curious, why oral history? Why? That's I think a term we rarely hear. At least I am interested in preserving history and people's voices. So I'm a big fan of an organization like StoryCorps through NPR, and that have done that type of work. But you rarely really hear beyond that. Why oral history?
So for us, was central to our mission is the cross-cultural understanding, the cultural awareness. And we believe that in order for you to learn about others, you have to begin to learn about yourself. And what better way to have an understanding of your history or the history of your community or your cultural identity than through the stories of others that get passed down from generation that really help to promote a deeper understanding. And we think that adding the oral history elements also makes the young people and their families the experts. It's not learning about somebody else's story or the way someone else has written your history or about your culture. It's about how you describe and define your culture and identity, and you're the expert in that, and you help to promote the understanding of different cultures by sharing your own story.
And that's certainly, we don't tend to think of it in art, but writing is an art, but the visual arts come into play in there, as both Francis and Joanne have said. Joanne, what has been your role, and through your experience, you're a visual artist. Before you got to Changing Worlds, how did you see the arts as part of that importance of preserving and forming the identity of children?
Yeah, I think the one thing that artists always want to do is create a meaningful experience for students and make the experience relevant. So I think that's where bringing in your personal identity, making linkages between yourself and other people is a really important part of expressing yourself through the arts. So not only in the visual arts area, but in drama and in dance, so much of what the masters of the arts do is express themselves through what they know and what they want to explore.
And you did this for how many years before you you joined Changing Worlds?
Well, I did on and off over 20 years. I was working at Columbia College prior to coming to Changing Worlds, and my role has many times been partnering artists with schools and then helping to build a game plan so that the work that they do together not only is meaningful for the instructor, the teacher in the classroom, but also brings the students to a different place, brings new vocabulary to their learning, brings new skill sets to their learning, and offers the students ways to be able to demonstrate what they know, how they know it, and basically build a message for other people to appreciate it.
The message, and what of Changing World's message is what attracted you to work and stay there and continue working? In a sense, are you still teaching, a teaching artist, or just?
I always consider myself a teaching artist because, as Mark will tell you, when I go into a classroom and we have a teaching artist working, I'll just dive right in and be the teaching artist assistant for the day. One of the things that attracted me to Changing Worlds was the idea of building out an idea for students about global awareness and cultural identity. That culture is something that you bring with you, but also is something that other people bring with them, and that there are commonalities between cultures, and then there are very distinct differences. And I think as we move with our students through the units of study that we do, we really try to have them articulate regularly and consistently what is the learning that they're bringing, what's the learning that they're getting, as well as what are things that they're bringing from themselves into the learning.
Okay, and all that they're bringing that cultural difference. What have been the reactions of children and parents as you bring those stories out, bring those traditions out, and how they see that maybe mirrored in another community or with their own neighbors at a school? What's been your experience with that, Mark, in seeing that change in children, or that recognition of the commonality, but yet the difference, celebration of difference?
I think children are very, to me, they're teachers in many ways, where their curiosity, their openness to learning about themselves, learning about other cultures, helps to promote that among the adults, including their parents and others. So what we've seen is a natural curiosity and an exploration by young people through the work that we do, and an engagement. And then a sharing of that with the adults, be it the teachers, be it their caregivers, whoever it might be in their lives. But really there's a natural curiosity that young people bring to this work. The arts help create add a vibrant aspect to that. And I mean, that work is very relevant at Calmeca, where the school is really kind of bridging those elements, and it's a natural partner for us.
So tell me, in just a few minutes, we're going to see some video of some students from Calmeca, but tell me how the folkloric dancing, because it's not just the visual arts or writing, it's also dance, which is another art. How has that become an important part of Calmeca? And during our conversation prior to the show, you said that some children some boys, you made the difference there, stay in the dance group from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade?
8th grade.
Which is miraculous for.
It is.
I remember being in 8th grade. I didn't want to be any part of that.
Exactly. So that kind of just demonstrates the power of the art, and when you put children on stage and you dress them up, and they know they're going to tell a story through their dance, and so they transform themselves into a different person. It's not them, it's someone else telling a story, and so they know how to move and they know how to portray that idea or that whole story. And when they hear the applauses, it's just amazing. And I know I have seen that become powerful for them, because now these are not children that are walking afraid to speak or to be able to express themselves, but these children are now more empowered to be able to express themselves more freely, not just on stage, but in the classrooms as well. And so they become wonderful student ambassadors and performers, and then they themselves become teachers. And so they get to teach other younger children the ropes of the trade. And so
that's what I keep hearing from you. And we'll come back to this point, but for now, let's look at some video footage from Calmeca and some of the students dancing. We'll just take a look at that right now. It's very beautiful to see those children dancing and sharing so much of themselves. And right before we went to that roll-in, excuse me, you were saying that children become ambassadors. They learn to value themselves. There are children who are not afraid to speak or speak up. So what I'm hearing from all of you is that Changing Worlds is just about community and building that and building family, but it's also about building children. Tell me about you could tell me about maybe a specific student that you interacted with, and Francis, and how you saw that change or transformation, and then we could probably talk about some other things you've seen in your own experience.
Yeah, I have many, but one that comes to mind is as I was teaching the folkloric dance group, because I teach as well, and that's when I asked for help. I saw a kindergartner come in and wait for her sisters to practice. She was the shyest little kindergartner you can imagine. And she sat through the practices for a while, and then I invited her to join the group and to join the practice. And little by little, she became more aware about the dance and joined it, and continued to be the most amazing performer ever. And currently she is performing worldwide as a professional dancer.
Wow.
And she herself is a teacher now, and she has her own dance group. And it was interesting because she sent me a message and said, "Guess what, Miss Garcia? I have my own dance group, and I pulled a Miss Garcia on them." I said, "You've got to have your hair up. You've got to do this. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it perfectly, because it's nothing but the best. Whatever you're going to do, it's got to be your best." And they did an amazing job. So for me, that really shows how a child who came in shy and nervous and would not speak up has really gone as high as she could go with dance.
And this student was from here, from Chicago? Or?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, a Chicago
Wow.
public school student.
Oh, they just blossomed
Oh, yes.
in every sense of the word. What's been your experience? What have you heard from parents or some of the teaching artists that are part of Changing Worlds and the transformation they've seen in children, or a story of a family that's really learned to value who they are and where they come from?
Sure. I mean, we as an organization do lots of assessment where we capture student voice, and I distinctly recall a specific student talking about how there was another peer in the class that they didn't really get along with, but that they knew they had to find a way to work with this person to be able to dance and be part of this program,
Okay.
and that they were committed to doing that. So, I mean, that's just one example on a kind of drill down levels from a child's perspective of how the arts can help people kind of really lift up their best and begin to collaborate and work together. But the stories are numerous of, especially when we're at another school where we work with in Inglewood, where kids were performing for the very first time in African dance and Latin dance and hip hop for their peers, the sense of pride that they received. And this was the first year they've ever had a dance program at that school.
Wow.
So, you know, in addition to our after school, and we also do in-school programs and also community engagement programs, and we see kind of the changes that the parents also tell us about, how they're much more vocal, or they feel more comfortable talking about themselves or with their peers, and really developing a greater sense of confidence.
That's amazing to hear how when we think of, or I think the general sense of thinking of really down and out communities, or communities that have gone through a rough time, like Englewood, I mean, people tend to have the mentality that there's little value there. And fortunately, through this type of work, we, I think, reaffirm that there is always value.
I think just picking up on that, I mean, the idea of value, having students understand that arts, no matter what you're doing, whether you're making a painting, a dance, a play, that there is a performance element to it. There is a culminating, we're all working towards a culminating event, a culminating exit, whether it's an exhibit or a performance. And I think that's, just to pick up on what Mark said, that was really a significant moment for those students to understand that all this rehearsal, all this practice, all these steps that they had learned actually all came together for a performance for an audience, and an audience who appreciated and applauded their work. So this whole idea of having the arts be foundational, a building block to something bigger, we find out that a lot of students bring prior knowledge into the work that we're doing. So an artist will introduce a concept, and students will start to talk about what they know about that concept. So they become partners in the learning experience, and very much build, you know, bring their personal voice, as Francis said, into the next steps on how they're going to fabricate that piece of work, whether it's a dance, a drama, or a piece of artwork.
One of and also prior to this, we were talking about one of my favorite educators, and Sir Ken Robinson. As I was reminded, he is a knight. And his ideas about the arts and education, and I tend to agree with a lot of his philosophy about the fact that arts is just as important as science or mathematics, and how we tend to devalue the arts. So I'm not saying that's happening now, because we also said that we're seeing perhaps some more investment by our city in the arts for all children, but I think the arts a lot of times tend to get pushed out and away, especially when there are budget cuts or there's belt tightening. Why do you think that is? And in your experience as artists and as part of this organization, have you looked to respond to that mentality that the arts aren't as important as other subjects? Joanne, let's start with you.
I think it's really important always to have families understand the value of the arts and what it's doing for education of their children in a comprehensive way. So I think that's why Francis's school is just such a model, because of the fact that you never know where the arts ends and the learning in other core subjects starts. Her school is a very integrated environment. So I agree with you. I think that principals have to make hard decisions sometimes, and those decisions sometimes, the arts teacher will be let go, or there'll be less opportunity or less funding to be able to bring in external organizations. But what I have a lot of confidence in is that having arts education be a platform, what part of the platform for the cultural plan for the city of Chicago, having the opportunity to have the arts education department at CPS start to build some momentum for what the arts can be inside and outside the classroom is a good sign. So I'm really looking forward and hoping for the best.
Okay, and we'll jump to you, Francis. How have you dealt with some of those questions? Because I'm sure in your experience as a principal, you've had to deal with, what do I do? The budget's tight, and
Well, to be honest with you, the arts will never be cut, because I have seen the power of it. When you allow children the opportunity to create, you build more of their cognitive ability. And we're there to be able to get the most academically of the children. And if you pull that away, that opportunity to explore and feel safe enough to explore and create, that just empowers the whole notion of the arts and problem solving and critical thinking. And so when you do that with kids, you automatically give them the opportunity to raise their own academic level. So the arts, the academics cannot exist without the arts. It's like the mind and the soul. You have to work with both of them together in order to get the most out of them. And I have seen that. I've tracked children who've been part of the arts, the folkloric, the arts, and who have excelled in that. And these are also children who are in the principal's honor list.
Wow.
These are children that are excelling, and these are children who are not afraid to speak up. I often give the kids an opportunity in a wider audience to step up and ask them, how do you feel about this topic? And I'm not surprised to see a lot of these children who are involved with the arts be the first ones to stand up and take the mic and say, well, Ms. Garcia, I think, and their peers are, shocked, the ones that are not as involved with the arts, that these kids have the courage to stand up and give their opinion. Common Core nowadays calls for creative thinking, problem solving. And if we don't give them the arts, the opportunity to explore and create, we're never going to get anywhere with Common Core. So for me, it's important, and we need to continue. We need partnerships like Changing Worlds to help us, because the money is not there. There aren't enough funds. And so as a school, as a public school, I'm very, very grateful to partnerships like Changing Worlds, because they help support and fill the voids that we cannot support.
And Mark, you as an organization, how do you work, and she said that there is sometimes money is tight. How do you come in and help support in those difficult moments, or difficult budgets, not necessarily moments all the time, but certainly trying to work with a budget that's not always very large?
Yeah, so for us, it's similar. We seek out the support from individuals, corporations, and foundations to help leverage dollars to help provide programs in schools, where schools might pay for a portion of our program, maybe a third of that, and then we help fundraise the rest of that. So really, it's a kind of the collective will of all of us as individuals, as citizens, as leaders in corporate society, to begin to figure out what we each can do to support organizations like Changing Worlds to continue to advance the arts. Schools alone can't do it. We alone can't do it. Chicago Public Schools alone can't do it. Collectively, we have to be able to harness all of our resources that we can leverage to be able to bring in artists, to be able to keep a certified art teacher in every classroom, to be able to have every child have an experience in the arts in every public school. For us, we partner and look at our budget and our resources and determine how many partnerships we can take on. And there's only ideally we would work with more than 40 or 50 schools a year, but our resources are limited as well. But we continue to work within our resources and leverage those dollars in the ways in which we can.
Okay. Great. One final question, because we are running out of time, and this is, well, it is related to your work, but I'm curious, who's your favorite artist or the person that inspired you to make this a life in the arts? Keep your answer as brief as possible. We'll start with Francis.
Well, there are several. I've always been having an artistic soul, but I'm captivated by the work of Diego Rivera.
Okay.
And the idea of the muralism. I just thought it was fascinating to see that movement at that period of time.
You, Mark, who was your favorite artist?
So it seems like Francis and I have a lot in common. So I was captivated by his work as well, and also Frida Kahlo and her amazing work, how she shared so much of herself through the arts.
And you, Joanne?
Yeah, I think my initial passion were printmakers, looking at printmakers.
Wow.
Wood cuts, linoleum cuts, things where you can make multiples and change them. So I had a really intensive public education with great art teachers who would always expose us to what was out in the field. So we got to go to museums and things like that. So I can't pick one, but I have to say that so many different artists have their passion comes forward to me and has influenced the artwork I make.
That's awesome. It's great to hear about what has moved you and what has kept you in the arts and spreading it to so many children and so many communities. Thank you for coming today, and I look forward to seeing you here again sometime.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perspectivas Latinas is a community service of CAN TV. If your nonprofit would like to work with CAN TV, call 312-738-1400 and ask for nonprofit services. Tune in to Perspectivas Latinas for local issues and concerns every Thursday at 8:30 p.m. on CAN TV 21. I'm Juan Carlos Hernandez. Thank you for joining us.